Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Unboxing Photography with Ricky and Jim. Today's episode is Unboxing Perfection. So pursuing perfection, imperfectly perfect, any combination that I could think of, you can think of. What do you got, Jim?
Well, I guess we had talked about a little bit about perfectionism and the pursuit of it. And I had some, I think you and I talked like a little bit last time, but I had some things lately where I had some kind of like semi-disasters that ended up working out okay. And then we had these like side conversations about, and I also, our good friend John Hendricks, I just had a conversation with him the other day about, yesterday actually, we were talking a little bit about just how that can lead to growth, making mistakes and how pursuing perfection sometimes can be a trap. And also just how do you define that? Like what is perfectionism? Because perfectionism means a lot of things for a lot of different people. So it's kind of a broad subject, but I think it's an important one in photography because we look at our work and we have some ideal, and then the world has a different ideal, and then the algorithm has a different ideal. So it's a very elusive kind of a word. So, but it's something that, as much as a lot of people say that they don't pursue perfectionism, when you hear them kind of talk about their expectations about their work, or about a picture, or about a camera, or about a lens, there's a lot of kind of the allure of kind of perfectionism or the ideal is something that's kind of prevalent in photography. So I thought it might be kind of cool to kind of talk about all the various aspects of that.
Yeah, I like this topic. I'm really excited to get into this. I actually started reading and I'm on a pause because I never finish a lot of the things that I start. But I revisit it every now and then, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term wabi-sabi.
Yep.
And it translates to imperfectly perfect, which is something that I wholeheartedly connect to as a concept. And it's a lot more than people think. There's like a whole philosophy. And I know recently these series of videos that we've been putting out is kind of like deep diving into the philosophies of photography. So I recommend people to give that a read. There's a couple different books. You can find them all over. But really just kind of like to broaden your scope on chasing perfection, and, everything doesn't need to be perfect. So I like this topic.
Yeah, and
You're good.
There's another Japanese thing which is called kintsugi.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I have the good fortune of working with an artist named Eric Hilton, who is a founder of the electronic down-tempo group Thievery Corporation. And they've been around since the 90s. And he put out a record like a year ago called, I forget what the name of the album was, but there's a single on it called Corazon Kintsugi, which is like, Kintsugi is this Japanese, it's this Japanese art where if you have like a teacup that's broken, instead of throwing it away, you take the pieces and then you repair it using this kind of glue that has gold in it. So the cracks, actually, you're celebrating the cracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then so instead of just taking something that's broken and throwing it away and forgetting about it, you're remembering, okay, there was this moment where this thing kind of got destroyed, but I repaired it and now it's still with me, Mm-hmm. And there's something to me there's a tremendous amount of Japanese philosophy that just like is amazing and deep and heavy. But like, to me, the concept that, we keep these incidents, these mistakes, these, issues in our lives, these screw ups, these tragedies, and then it becomes part of who we are. So just completely throwing them away and not acknowledging them isn't really healthy. And I think that Japanese attitude of like, oh, I took a cup and I broke it, man, instead of just putting it in the garbage, I'm going to make it into something more beautiful and treat it almost like an heirloom. is a really cool way to look at things, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I thought about when you started mentioning wabi sabi. Was that like, I think, there's some approaches to life that the Japanese had that are definitely a little bit different than traditional Western ways of looking at and doing things,
Yeah. They do have some really good philosophies. There's bunches. Another one that I can name is Ikigai, which is finding your personal happiness. So again, stuff that I started reading into to kind of try to connect how I take photos and my philosophy into photography. And I kind of like to try to correlate the two and see what I can come up with. So I do all kinds of studying into different philosophies, Stoicism, Stoics, like actual philosopher stuff. And I try to dig and see like how does this relate to this topic? How does it relate to this concept? So, but that's just me. I've been working on that for a few years, and I got books that I've just kind of put together. But anyways, let's get to the topic. I kind of want to unbox this. So, yeah, what do we got?
Cool.
What do we got for perfection and photography?
Well, I guess you could start it from the standpoint of there's this approach to perfectionism that, let's say, may not be as conscious or overt as it may not be conscious or overt from a technical standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this thing of like there's a whole culture, and we've talked about it before in these discussions about how the videos that are really popular on YouTube are kind of like unboxings and product reviews and talking about different kinds of lenses or like whatever the new camera comes out, the new how many stops of dynamic range it has, how many megapixels, image stabilization, all these other kind of things. The color science, blah, blah, all this other stuff. And then you'll see people, take like the old M10 and then take the M11, if we're going to talk like this for a second, and they'll zoom in, or the SL2 versus the SL3, and they'll zoom into it. They'll show a picture of a cityscape, and they'll zoom into like 400 or 500%, and they'll be like, look at that lamp in this window. You can see the patterns on the lampshade, and so everyone's like, oh man, and it becomes this, and it's like this, and then everybody wants to get rid of the previous generation camera because look what this new thing can do. And I don't think that consciously manifests itself in anybody's mind as I need something that's perfect, but it's viewed as like, oh, well, this is sharper, mm-hmm. or this resolves more, or, this can go to a much higher ISO. And these things are just taken automatically as improvements or something that's like necessary or as progress. And it clearly has a tremendous amount of weight, because if you look at the videos that deal with this on YouTube, the review videos and stuff, and the comments and the likes and the subscribers that people have who deal with that kind of subject matter, it's massive. I mean, it's way more than the shit that we talk about. I mean, it's like massively more. Like if you look at things about photography technique or the history of photography or creativity online versus a typical like unboxing the new like the M11 Safari or whatever, it's tiny compared to that kind of stuff. I don't think that people are going like, I'm pursuing perfection, so this is why I'm interested in this. But the reality is that it's viewed as some kind of progression or some kind of improvement. And I guess one of the questions is, if you pursue that, or if that is something that's really important, how much important, or how important is that relative to looking at your work and saying, is my work coming on?
Yeah.
And do I need this functionality? Is there something missing in my work? Have I taken my work to the point where like whatever my camera is doing is I creatively want to do something that this camera is impeding me from doing?
Yeah.
Now, if you're talking about a camera that has autofocus limitations and you're a sports photographer, cool. I get it. Like if you're following football games or something and like your autofocus can't keep up, like in the SL2, it had, you know, phase versus contrast autofocus or whatever, you know, and it was slow and blah, blah, and they moved to a new system on the new one. So it's supposed to be better. I get that if you need that. But if you're doing portraiture or, you know, or landscapes or anything like that, those kind of technologies don't really matter. But it was like a big issue. So the question is, why do we feel that? Why do we pursue perfection in the tools without necessarily having a rationale or a reason in our work for needing whatever those improvements are? And kind of what is that about? So that's a perfection question. That's a perfectionism question to start.
I think that it's kind of like, it's definitely a marketing gimmick for me. And I was the one guy that I had to update my camera body every time they released a new one. I was that guy. And I never read an instruction manual from cover to cover. That's one, right? All I focused on, I didn't care about the technology, but somehow I related a new camera was going to make me, my images better, right? Not make me a better photographer. I just thought my photography would be better. So I fell into that trap. And I think a lot of other people do. And I think like the more videos people watch of people actually unboxing the cameras, they kind of fall into those same traps. Like, how does this guy get this camera? Oh, it's free. They sent it to him. People, they kind of make up their own narratives in their minds, right? I want this tool. I want this toy. Oh, that's nice and new shiny. So much so, like you see cameras that haven't been out for more than a year, maybe two, and people are, oh, that's my dream camera. And that's a phrase that I just grew and I learned to despise. I seriously despise whenever someone slaps that token, oh, that's my dream, whatever. And it could be cars. The car is brand new. Maybe I think there has to be like a deeper connection for something to honestly be like, that's my dream camera, right? So like I used this example before where like if my father had an M6 and I seen him shoot that every day and, you know, I couldn't afford one. And then later down the line, I'm like, man, I've always wanted a M6 because of, you know, personal reasons. I understand that I could relate to. But I think I started to just kind of hate the term whenever I seen people like kind of related to just like marketing techniques, right? And you outlined how record labels, they used to market their songs, and I know camera brands, they do the same and so on and so forth. And I think really they're pursuing perfection in the wrong places, and it's really more to just feed the dopamine, right?
Well, it's good that you brought that up because that's what I was thinking when you were talking, which is that, you know, I think generally, especially now with social media, with algorithms and the fact that you're getting shown things, you know, you look at one, it sees that you linger on a certain ad for a certain type of thing, and all of a sudden your feed becomes, you know, a lot about whatever you had lingered on, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, you're seeing these things as these kind of aspirational items, you know, or, you know, like, you know, I'm seeing everybody, all these photographers are talking about this new thing, right? And it maybe isn't even just that. It could be, there's this phenomena in New York where there's these, SNL did a skit about it called Big Dumb Lines. I'll be walking in Soho and I'll see in front of a little yogurt shop or a pizza place, there's a line of literally like 200 kids. I shouldn't say kids, they're people up until like their early 30s. Like, it's this insane line. And I'm like, what's going on? Is somebody famous here? And it's like, oh no, it's a TikTok thing, you know, because somebody went on TikTok or whatever, and it was just like, oh, you have to get frozen yogurt here. So now all of a sudden there's this like huge line there. Everyone's like, oh, I have to get here. Why are we standing in this? Why are you guys standing in line to get frozen yogurt? There's like frozen yogurt like right across the street. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, you just kind of do it. But I think that what happens is that all of this kind of marketing, and I mean, particularly when new cameras drop, new systems, new lenses, whatever, they get them out to all the influencers, and then there's this barrage of content once the embargo date passes. And so then your whole feed, it's all about that thing. And it makes you kind of want something because you want to be kind of part of it. It's like everybody has this, or you're seeing it again and again and again. It's like, I want this, or I need this. And not being able to get it can make you, really unhappy.
Yeah.
And what I'm kind of interested in, and this is almost like unplugging yourself from the matrix. This is like Keanu taking the thing out of his throat and, deciding you're not going to be a battery anymore. It's just saying like, okay, that's not going to be the thing that I gravitate towards, is the acquisition of a new piece of gear, or the desire to keep turning things over and keep getting whatever the new thing is. I'm going to think about, or first I'm just going to look and see if I look on my feed at a lot of things which are educational, which are about art, interviews with photographers, interviews with artists, writers, things like that, about the creative process. And let me see how much more of that I get in my feed. And that usually works. It's a little bit harder because then the algorithm's like, what am I going to sell this guy? Because I don't really, because there's nothing that, if I look at a lot of that stuff, they'll see, I'm looking at photography stuff, so they'll try to sell me photography gear. But if they're not trying to sell me anything that's going to help me educate myself or make my pictures better, because there isn't anybody out there paying them to advertise that to me.
Yeah.
So I'm not really seeing that. But it's weird how, if you look at a lot of good work, or if you set up your feed so that you let's say you silo yourself in a way that like you hide content from everybody and everything except stuff that you think is work that you aspire to, that you think, like, let's say the only thing that's going to be on your feed, or the only things that you're going to see because you mute everything,
Joe Greer
is
photos.
just amazing. It's just amazing, brilliant photography or brilliant artwork. I wonder how you personally would feel about your own work, and what you would want and what your level of happiness would be if that's all that you did. And if that's kind of what you sought to acquire, was knowledge and ability. And that's not to say, because the other part of this conversation is that the pursuit of happiness the pursuit of perfection in our photographic practice, I think, is a trap and a mistake also.
Mm-hmm. But I think, so just going off of what you just said now, I think the pursuit of perfection is similar or parallel to the pursuit of happiness, right? Or at least for me, I can say it is. And I know for a long time, like, I was a perfectionist with any little thing that I've ever had to do creatively, right? Even at work, my actual primary job, like, I had to be perfect. I had to do everything right. And like, what's perfect? Who defines perfect, right? Yeah. What's perfect? Who defines it? Perfect is like we set our own boundaries for perfection.
I don't want to get too metaphysical, but I don't think that the point of us being here is to be perfect. If you think about it, from the first moment you're alive, you're shitting your pants, literally, until you learn how not to shit your pants.
Yeah.
Right. And then and that kind of defines what our lives are about. Our whole life is an endless series of us shitting our pants until we figure out how not to shit our pants, right? Like, you make mistakes constantly over and over again at work, in relationships. If you make a cake, the first one you make is crappy. You cook dinner for a bunch of, I'm gonna have my girlfriend over, I'm gonna cook for all of her friends. You make it, you make a horrible meal, then you make a better one the next time, or I'm gonna go check my driver's test. Maybe you fail the first time, or, I'm gonna go out and get drunk for my birthday, and you end up puking your guts out. And you go, I won't do that. Maybe next time I'll only have 3 beers instead of 12. Your whole life, You say the wrong thing in a relationship. You don't understand somebody else's feelings. You pick up a camera and you have no idea where the frame is, or you screw up shutter speed or ISO or just whatever. Our whole lives are about making mistakes over and over again. And then you build up this lifetime of experiences and you make those mistakes, and then you stop making those mistakes, or you make smaller mistakes or whatever. Mm-hmm. So the pursuit of perfection and this whole illusion of, like, when you see all these like celebrities on social media that are like so perfect and they get like Botox and all this shit, and they're like wearing all the perfect clothing and everything, their lives look so happy and whatever, like that's, they're selling something that's non-existent. Mm-hmm. Because those people have all the same issues and problems, and maybe more than you do, and yet people look at them as like as some kind of like ideal, or people who have like figured something out, or they aspire to be them just because they're like super rich or whatever.
Insecurities.
And plenty of super rich people snuff themselves, decide they don't want to be here anymore. Plenty of super rich people have divorces, messed up kids, blah, 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 whatever. Plenty of people who we know who have, introduce me to somebody who has every limited edition Leica, and I'll introduce you to somebody who probably takes really shitty fucking pictures, right? Just because you have money doesn't mean, that you're good, that you figured out all the problems, What money can kind of do, I think it can make you think that you've got it all right because you've got money, and I can buy this, or I can buy that, or pay this person, pay that. And so you think, and there's definitely people in society right now who are in large positions of authority who think that everything that comes out of their mouth is perfection and genius, and having that humility and understanding that perfection is actually, the pursuit of perfection is a path to unhappiness. It's a path to stifling your work. Mm-hmm. It's a path to making your work shallow bullshit. I think is something important to kind of figure out. When I go out, we talk about having child mind. I have shit my pants mind when I go, to take pictures. Yeah. I'm a baby, and I'm walking around with a diaper, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get better at what I do. Yeah. And I'm not so progressed in what I do to have a perception that every time I pick up the camera and point it at something, that it's going to be brilliant or it's going to be amazing. And a camera, super sophisticated, cutting edge, brand new camera is not going to do that for me. AI is not going to do that for me. What's going to get me to be better is experience and screwing up, mm-hmm. and learning from my mistakes. Yeah. And so if you're like, I need to be perfect, sometimes you can get so focused on this isn't perfect. Like, take a minute and go, all right, I wanted to accomplish this and I didn't. And instead of just putting it in the trash, look at the picture and say, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Maybe there's something interesting in this picture, in the mistake. Maybe maybe I wanted to get this and I got something different, but there's something interesting about the mistake. And then the mistake that I made ends up making it so that I can find my way to what I wanted to actually accomplish. That's learning. That's why Cartier-Bresson said your first 10,000 pictures are all trash. Yeah. He didn't say, I expect your second picture to be the guy jumping over the fucking ladder in the puddle, I'm sure he took 10,000 shitty pictures before he got anywhere near that also, Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, there's this, here needs to be perfect. What was great yesterday is now there's a new one. So that thing is shit. And it's irrelevant. There's that whole school of pursuit of perfection. And then in our work, we can have this thing of like, well, I need to be as good as this person, yeah, or do this thing. And I think, that's kind of I think those are two things that seem really different, but they're pretty common, I think, in photography.
I think I'm going to kind of lay it out like this. So I think for me, I've found perfection in my happiness, right? I'll define that. I'm happy with the photos that I take. And for me, I've accepted the fact that I'm not currently at this moment an ambassador for a camera brand. I don't get free cameras, right? I've accepted that. So I'm not chasing anything big and monumental to that level. If it comes, I'm going to take it. Not going to say no. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say, oh, someone offered me that position, I would decline it. No, that's not my intention and focus at the moment. My intention and focus is to make photos that I'm happy with. And for me, that's my perfection. So my perfection is different from your perfection. And your perfection is different from someone else's perfection. Whatever I think is perfect may not be perfect for other people, right? I see an image, I'm like, oh man, that's a really perfect image. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a while since I've seen a perfect image, modern, right? Last week, there was some really perfect images that we reviewed, which we'll get this week's as well and later. But I think we have to establish the boundaries and our expectations within ourselves realistically on what perfection is, right? Because most people, at least this is what I like to think, is they struggle and I'll go with struggle. They struggle to find that balance trying to achieve something that most people don't get, right? Whatever their goal is.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things that, like, everybody's goals are different. Like, some people their goal might be that they just take good pictures of their kids because they want to have like a legacy of their photographs of their children, and that's it. And then there's other people that say, I want to hang in the Museum of Art and Art. And those are two very different ends of the opposite ends of the spectrum. And whatever your idea of, maybe not perfectionism, but whatever your goal is, you'll get there if you put in the work. Hopefully. I don't know about MoMA, but you'll definitely be able to take good pictures of your kids if you keep it, you know. Back to what you said before about the ambassador thing, I hear this all the time, and I think we really need to kind of just talk about it in a plain kind of a way. The reason why people get ambassadorships from camera brands is because of eyeballs. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have a lot of people following you, if you have a big audience, then camera brands are going to want to put their shit in front of your audience because you've got a lot of eyeballs. That has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not your work is any good. Because there are photographers who get sent stuff all the time that I watch on YouTube whose pictures are very mid at best, who get fawned all over by the camera brands, and it's because they have 200,000 subscribers or whatever. And that's a valuable platform for camera brands to market their stuff. There's other people who have a combination of the two, who are really, really great photographers and who have, you know, a platform, and so camera brands might want to give things to them, and then, you know, they'll get stuff from them because of that. But I hear people constantly saying, "Oh, how do I become an ambassador? How do I become an ambassador?" The reality of the question is, it doesn't really matter how good your pictures are. I hate to say it, it doesn't, because I see there's a photographer I'm thinking of in particular who is like, nobody we're friends with or that we've really ever talked about, but somebody who's like kind of tight with Leica. And I see this person at all the Leica events and stuff like that. And I'm constantly puzzled why this person has the juice that they have, because their work is like whatever. But it's not really a surprise, because they have a channel and they talk and they've got followers and they're out there and whatever. And so they've got a platform. And so all kudos to them for building that platform. But that's a very different type of intent. That's saying, I want to build an audience. What do I need to do to build an audience on YouTube? Because if I want to get love from these brands, I need to have an audience. And so what do I need to do in order to acquire that? I never think along those lines when I go out and take a picture. Actually, the opposite. If I ever think that for a second, if I get an inkling that I'm creating something that it's going to be that some audience is going to love, or some camera brand is going to love, I have almost like an ick kind of a reaction to that. Like, I don't want to do anything because somebody is going to like it. But if you want to build a platform to get entrance into those halls, you have to think that way.
Yeah.
And that's cool if that's what somebody wants to do. And those people, I'm sure, also don't think that their work, the people whose work, is of secondary importance to getting that access and that platform, maybe they don't think that their work is not that great. Maybe they think their work is fantastic. I don't know. This is all kind of opinions. This person's work, who I don't like, some other people might think that they're fantastic. But that whole ambassador thing, I hear so many people say, "How do you do that? How do you get that? How do I become that? How do I become?" And it's fucking easy. Build an audience. Build a platform. You don't have to worry about taking good pictures. Just get your subscribers up. If you've got 50, 75, 100,000 subscribers, you can be taking pictures of your toenail. Your whole Instagram feed can be pictures of your toenails. And if you had 200,000 subscribers, you're going to get invited to Westlar, probably, Like, I hate to say it, but that's the truth, Like, you need to have an audience. I like to think that those companies also obviously look at the work. They're not going to venerate. I'm just joking. They're not going to venerate something that's terrible and unappetizing and garbage.
Yeah,
but I think the
toenails won't do it.
Toenails won't. Hey, you never know. You know what? If Ralph Gibson took pictures of did a book of toenail pictures, I bet they would be the best toenail pictures anybody ever took. Anyway,
I think if anyone could do it, it would be him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
and I say that without a hint of sarcasm. I agree with that.
All right, so really quick, what is your perfection? I already listed mine, my happiness, right? So for you, what is Jim's perfection?
It's a few things. One is, I was there taking the picture, and I had a feeling when I took the picture, and an idea when I framed it, and when I tripped the shutter. And it's maybe not I'm going to use a different word. I'm going to use satisfaction, not perfection. I'm satisfied if what I get when I take the film out of the tank is close to what I thought I was going to get when I tripped the shutter. I'm more satisfied if it's more than what I thought I got when I tripped the shutter. And that's one of the reasons why I like doing things like double exposures, because you get surprises sometimes that are elevated, and film sometimes has that unpredictability where you end up getting something that's more than what you took. So that's satisfactory to me. The other thing I find satisfying is, do the people who I photographed appreciate the photographs I took of them? Because I do a lot of street portraiture. So if I send it to somebody and I see they're using it 2 years later as their IG profile picture, and because it meant that much to them, that's extremely satisfying. If I look at my frames and I see that there's no garbage in my frame, and that my frame is well composed, and that everything's in balance, that's really satisfying. So, and then also, like, lastly, just, did I get out this week? Even if I take no pictures, did I go out? Part of our practice is, it's like being a fisherman. You're not a fisherman because you go out and catch fish, because you caught some big fish. You're a fisherman because you grab all your shit, you get up in the morning, you go out in your boat, you sit on the water, and you drop your hook in the water. And whether or not you pull anything up, you're still a fisherman. So if I'm going out, or fisherwoman, or fisher day, right?
Fisher person.
So if I go, so if I go out and pound the pavement and I don't get anything, like yesterday I was out in my rolling and I didn't get anything. But if I go out and I just come back and I sweated it up, I put in the miles, I got my steps, I had the camera at my hip, that's satisfying. So all those things to me are very satisfying. I wouldn't say that that's perfection, but it gives me a sense of satisfaction that some other people might say it's my form of perfection, is being satisfied.
Watch this. So I just got certified. I'm not accredited yet, but I'm a certified coach, so I can do life coaching, and I do plan on doing some photography coaching as well. What I'm hearing is your satisfaction is your perfection.
Yeah, but I think, and the satisfaction you could change that word out for happiness. You could change that entire thing out for living in the moment. You could change it out for having gratitude. I was talking to a friend of ours yesterday who listens to the show, and they were saying that relative
you
to
could say their
people
name
like,
if you like.
I'm not going to say their name.
All right.
Relative to people like Phil Penman and Alan Schaller, they felt somehow unaccomplished because they didn't have work that was consistent, let's say. Like they took pictures of lots and lots of different things. And so they looked at that as some kind of flaw or some kind of, like they were inferior in some way to those two guys because they didn't have work that was so clearly defined as Alan and Phil. And we talk about both of those guys, it seems like, on every show because they're really both successful people. But what I said to this person was, listen, man, like that's could be considered a strength.
Yeah.
The fact that you can go and take pictures of a swim meet and then go take pictures of some people playing guitar and then go to Europe and take pictures of the city and then go out and take pictures of the sky or the water. Like maybe he was saying, I said, that's amazing. It's strength. And he said, yeah, but it's all kind of it's not unified. And I said, well, yeah, but what's happening is you're taking all these pictures and eventually if you take enough of them, when you take a picture of a shoe or the sky or a swim meet or a building in Spain, all of those pictures will look like pictures that you took.
Yep.
And it will be disparate subjects, but it will have your visual signature. And that's what you're progressing towards. And people like Phil and Alan have their visual signature and they take stuff within their genre or their mindset and it's identifiable as what they do. And it's very clearly defined. I would love to see, and I know we've talked about this before, I would love to go on to either one of those guys' feeds and see like something and go like, wow, that's different. And I said this to our friend, I said, think about that you have if you're a photographer that has a style that's so defined that if you do anything outside that, you have to worry, am I going to lose followers? Is this going to confuse people? That's a golden cage in a way, right? And if either one of those guys, if Alan Schaller decided, I'm not going to do high contrast black and white, I'm going to just like spend a year and do nothing but color work, would he lose his audience? Would he lose some of his audience? Would people not understand it? That's hard, right? I mean, that's you. He has to have that dialogue, that like in his mind, he's thinking to himself, like that's something he has to think about. This guy that I'm talking about, our friend, he doesn't have to think about that at all. I don't think about that. I'm like, I'll do black and white. I'll take a picture of a person. I'll take a picture of a city. I just want to get towards like what I'm doing. And I don't think that saying like you have to do one thing so that algorithmically it makes sense, or that when people look at your work, they can understand it because it's all the same thing, or it's all in one head. That some people may say that's perfect. And I look at that as that could be a golden cage. I think both of those guys, if they wanted to shoot color or whatever, they both have the capability to produce great pictures if they want. I'm not saying at all that either one of those guys aren't capable of doing that. They are. But again, what is perfect or satisfying for us as photographers, especially when we're looking at other people and what they've achieved, it can be a trap to look at other people's work and say, that's the ideal. Like just like a camera.
Yeah.
Oh, I have the 240. I need the 11P because it's got content credentials, blah, 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 whatever. Right. You could look at other photographers and say, oh, but they have like 500,000 followers and it's all this one way and their feed is all curated and it's all beautiful and whatever. That could be a trap, right? Like I know that when I was walking around with my SL2 and I would see every guy in New York City who had an M11 and they were all like freezing and they were sending the Leica for new motherboards and everything. I'm like, yeah, this thing's never froze, like so. And it was like, they're like, I spent $9,000 into my camera. It's like, and that was for a while until I got that sorted out. It was like, that was kind of a nightmare to have something that was the cutting edge of technology. And it might be a nightmare to have a certain type of photography where where your audience has an expectation and you have to do that all the time. So again, back to your thing, what is perfection?
Mm-hmm. We'll leave it on the rhetorical side. Yeah. I did see that the M11 malfunction firsthand. I was teaching somebody actually, and he was telling me stories on how it would just randomly happen. So he was always checking his camera like every so often. Well, we were shooting and we went for a long stretch and he kept checking his camera to make sure everything was good. And we started from like after a coffee break and we shot for like an hour, and that whole entire hour, nothing recorded on his SD card. But it was, shooting and
overriding.
I honestly, I don't know what happened, but I watched it and I witnessed it and I was like, dude, like I would feel like my heart would be broken, right? Just, I'm out here thinking I'm taking photos and the camera's laughing at me inside. It was heartbreaking. I was like, phew. So I witnessed that. Anyways, this episode's not about that, but I just had to talk about it. So,
well, and they got it sorted out.
Yeah,
but again, you're thinking I'm going to get this latest, greatest thing, some amazing tools, some perfect thing. You have this idea, this thing, this perfection, this thing that's going to enable you. And, the reality is sometimes maybe the thing that you've just been using for a while because you're not thinking about it, is the better thing,
Yeah.
But again, none of these companies can stay in business unless they get us to buy stuff. There's that word planned obsolescence, like back in the day, like I guess when you bought like an M3, after you bought an M3, and then maybe a 35, like I think for a lot of the people that Leica sold those to back in the day, that was the last time they heard from those people as customers for a long time. Maybe never ever, right? Unless they wanted another body or they wanted a second lens or something like that, But now I got the 240, then I got to get the 10, then I got to get the MP, then I got the 11, then I got the 11B, and then it's this whole kind of like upgrade path and planned obsolescence thing. And we all participate in that to a certain degree, but I think that's one of the things that's good about film is that you don't, you're not part of that. You don't participate in that. So it enables you. I think it frees your mind to think about other things. Anyway.
I wouldn't contribute that to shooting film. That's just me. I don't think, because there's people out there that feel the same way about film cameras.
Well, there's no new film camera coming out. And, there's no unboxing video except when the M6 came out, right? Mm-hmm. So
Pentax released a film camera.
What, that half frame thing?
Yep.
Or was that the yeah, which was,
and Fujifilm did too. Yeah. They're catching on. I don't think they'll invest in too heavy into it, but I don't know. This is just my opinion. I don't think that, people, the film, it doesn't contribute, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with technology, because it moves so quickly, and there's so much technical advancement that's in processing speed. We haven't even seen AI built into camera bodies, and it will be built into camera bodies because it's in phones, and you're going to have the iPhone is going to have AI capabilities that no camera is going to have for things like exposure and blur and all this other stuff that you're going to be able to do with AI, removing things from the scene, all this stuff that is going to make a camera look like a really, really rudimentary tool.
Yeah.
And not to get into a technology discussion, but I really do think that we're going to get very quickly to a place where digital cameras, there's going to be so many assists and so much intelligence built into the camera that there's going to be, and the image is going to have so much resolution and so much of the imperfections kind of pulled out of it. Mm-hmm. Automatically because of the intelligence of the cameras, that it's going to be hard to distinguish what's a real photograph that was taken by a camera and what a digital camera and what wasn't. So I think I don't know. I think film is going to take on increased importance because it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah. Okay. That one I will agree with. But really quick before we go into our next segment, which I hope you're prepared for, because I am. I always come
Dun,
prepared.
dun, dun. Okay.
I think I like to believe that was what the intent of the content creator thing in the cameras, the in-body one. However, dun dun dun, big reveal. Adobe automatically gives you the ability to include that content creator stuff.
You know, I've been involved in new technology since 1993, working at record companies. But back when it was all about CD-ROMs, and I would have to go to demos and tell people about SCSI and motherboards and RAM and be set. You got to set your jumpers on, and all that. I mean, back when it was really a pain in the ass. And there's always some new technology. Like 5 years ago, I went and sat with somebody who was talking to me about blockchain and how it's going to evolve, change this and that, and what it was going to do. And blockchain essentially is a ledger that shows who made something originally and who was on it, and then any revisions to it. It's a ledger of revisions throughout time. And I heard about how this was going to transform everything. And maybe some of these things are, but
NFTs.
I mean, honestly, who gives a shit? I mean, when we're talking about these images today that we're going to show and our photo of the week and stuff like that, and I just went out to Google and did an image search for a photographer, and it's by that photographer, and I just pulled the freaking image off. Okay, I can't drag it because you made it so I can't copy it from your website. Okay, I'll just do a screen grab. But there's always going to be a way to get around whatever they do. And the thing is, all of this technology, I guarantee you, they're sitting in meetings and saying what can we include to make it so that people want to upgrade? What can we do to pack this camera so that people want to spend the money and get the new thing? And I'm not saying that having some credentials, like having your name baked into an image, is not of value, but okay. I had an image of mine that I took in the mid '90s of a motorcycle racer named Anthony Gobert. I took a picture of him when he was racing MotoGP in Imola, Italy, briefly. And he ended up having all sorts of drug problems and everything, ultimately got booted out of racing, became homeless, kind of a criminal, then got better, but then had some weird cancer and ended up dying. It was really tragic. He was a super talented guy. I met him once and he was really kind and sweet, but I think he just had issues and had substance abuse issues. Anyway, some Australian newspaper, when he died, found on my Instagram feed a picture I had taken of him and and it had my name on it. It was my IG account with my name on it. They took my image off IG and then used it as one of the images in their news story in this Australian newspaper when he died. I didn't know this. I found out about it a year or 2 years after he died, because I was searching for pictures of Anthony Gobert and I saw my picture in an obituary of this guy.
Yeah.
And I sent the newspaper a note saying, this is my picture. You never asked my permission, and my name's right on the IG feed. They never wrote me back. They're just fuck you. And So, I mean, maybe if I got a lawyer or something like that. So it's okay, so if my content credentials were there, do I fucking need content credentials? My name was on the image. It was on my IG, and the fucking newspaper stole my image. Okay? If you've got a team of, what's content credentials going to do? You got a team of lawyers to call somebody and sue them? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, there we go.
Honestly. I mean, whatever. I mean, maybe for some people it's kind of, they think it's important, but anyway.
Somebody owes you a royalty check.
Yeah, whatever. Good luck with that.
Well, we heard it firsthand. Sounds like that technology is useless because he's right. I've done the same thing. All you got to do is just take a picture with your second secret phone. Boom, screen grab. That's it.
Yeah, or somebody will create a plug-in that strips it out. I mean, I hate to say it, but DVD, Blu-ray, there's software out there where you can just crack those things, rip the audio from them, rip the video from them, whatever. It just moves too fast. The technology moves too fast. There was when I worked for Sony in the early days of electronic music distribution, we were talking about selling downloads over the internet. We would talk about this thing called super distribution, which is where I would have a file, I would buy it, and I would have my name attached to it, but I have all the rights in the file, or whatever. And then because we were trying to figure out how to make file sharing into a legitimate business. So you buy something for 99 cents, but then if you send it to somebody, they can listen to it X amount of times, and there's a counter in there. Yeah. Somebody listens to it 5 times, and then it pops up and says you have to pay for it. And if they pay for it, then they can listen to it, and then the person who sent it to them maybe gets a credit or something like that. And that was called super distribution. Like, instead of trying to stop people from sharing things, encourage them to share it somehow. Like, maybe if you buy it for 99 cents and you send it to 50 people who all buy it, maybe then you should get it for free because you're the first guy that sent it out there, and because of you, 50 people ended up paying me. So you should get it for free. That to me is a lot more interesting, figuring out that kind of stuff, than trying to put something in a lockbox, because it straight up doesn't work. No one gives a shit. Incentivizing people to spread your work around and share it is to me a much more interesting challenge than trying to say, I need to get credit. Okay, you got credit. Now what? Someone going to pay you?
Yeah.
We need to get paid to begin with.
Pay me.
No one pays for photographs.
That's true.
Nobody pays for photographs. Okay, so now you're going to absolutely know who you're not paying. You absolutely know who I am, so that when you don't pay me, you know from my content credentials who you are not paying. Like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah. All right. Just don't go to his IG. Technology. Anywho. All right. So as we move into our next segment, I hope you're ready for this, because we were going to touch on this real briefly. Mount Rushmore of photography, which kind of plays into perfectionism, perfection, right? Because in my mind, these photographers should be perfect. So
I'm calling it on my list here.
All right. I'm going to allow you to go first, as always.
No, I want you to go first. I talk too much in these things. I watch these videos back and I'm like, Jesus Christ, dude, shut up. So I know people out there are definitely feeling the same way. So you talk.
All right, here we go. I'll start. So my Mount Rushmore is the founding father, the foundation, W. Eugene Smith, right? Okay. The Wanderer, Daido Moriyama. The known unknown, Vivian Meyer. The visionary, Robert Frank. Now, I was real torn, right, on who to put on that last spot, because there's so many good ones. But I ended up ultimately selecting Robert Frank because I'm just going to say the Americans, right? Classic. Yeah. And there's other photographers that also have timeless works of art books as well. But the Americans, for me, is a very fundamental photo book, right?
100%, absolutely.
And I think anyone who has seen it and actually like studied the images inside kind of understand that. But I'm not done. I have a Lincoln Memorial, which I gave that honor to Henry Cartier-Bresson. And then next to my Lincoln Memorial, I have a Washington Monument, which is Joel Meyerowitz.
Right? Okay. You're cheating because that's 7, but okay.
No, I said a Mount Rushmore. I mean, I told you, come prepared. You never know. But then I got some honorable mentions. Gordon Parks, Salgado, Sal Leiter, Ernst Haas, William Eggleston, and the list goes on. So that is my Mount Rushmore with some Washington, D.C. monuments as well. So,
okay.
Here we go. Jim's side.
Okay. So I really did a lot of thought on this, and I was like, okay, so for Mount Rushmore, are we talking about people who are like fundamentally the most important people in photography? Because then, you could go back to Matthew Brady, like a Civil War photographer, or Eugene Atget, or there's so many people in photography. Or you could take a picture, the first photograph in recorded history, that picture that was the long exposure on that French rooftop. Mm-hmm. It's like over a course of a day. I'm forgetting the name of the photographer, but it's like, is it people who are like giants in the history of photography? And then I thought, like, I can't do that. I can't do that in 5 people, number one. So I thought, like, well, who are the 5 people who, when I'm doing my work, I constantly look to and say that they're an inspiration to what I do. And that, and I stuck to a hard 5. It rotates. It's because there's people that it pains me not to mention. Like, I'll just mention like Philip Hausman, or, is, if you don't know his work, like he's an unbelievable photographer, or, people like Rodney Smith, there's lots of people who I look at who really, David Bailey, who are inspirations to what I do. Not that you would see it by looking at my pictures, but my core 5 of people who I think are most important to me and what I do. Number 1 is Arnold Newman, largely a portrait photographer. Anton Corbin, Richard Avedon, Kudelka, and there's nothing in my work at all that is in any way influenced. You would never look at any of my pictures and think this guy likes Kudelka, but the energy and the composition and everything, his pictures, is just something that, like, I look at every single picture, every single frame I've ever seen of the guy, and I go, like, there's a lesson in every single frame the guy's ever taken. Mm-hmm. So that's why he's so important to me. And the last guy is Guy Bourdin. And the reason why he's important to me is, and when we move to photo of the week, it'll be a better illustration of it, but he's somebody who you could say, go take a picture of this thing. Go take a picture of a woman sitting on a bench and give him 3 rolls of film, and he would come back with 100 photographs that look, every one of them looks completely different. He's an endlessly creative, brilliant photographer, and it's just a really good example of somebody who you can look to and say, like, if someone goes, well, I just had this, like, really, it was like a couple of kids playing soccer, so whatever, the pictures kind of suck. And it's like, oh yeah, well, here's a guy who took a picture of women and shoes and did it like 1,000 different ways, and every single picture is different and amazing. So, but we'll talk about when we move on to that. But those are 5 photographers for me that mean, how can you not, Richard Avedon, if you're a portrait photographer at all, or if you're interested in style and fashion at all, how could you not mention him?
Yeah.
And like, if I had that monument thing, I would say people like, I'd mention, Irving Penn, Peter Lindbergh, let's say.
Next time you got to be more creative. But I'll let you go. There you go. I'll give you 2 extra monuments.
No, you know what? My 5 is my 5 is my 5. Your Newman, 5. Kudelka, Corbin, Avedon, and Bourdin. That's my 5. If I had to stick to 5.
It's a good list. I wasn't expecting any of those. So, yeah, good on you. You switched it up a lot.
Well, listen, Eugene Smith and Robert Frank, you can't, like, if you talk about the history of photography, like giants, hugely important. Mm-hmm. Does anything that they do when I go out to take pictures of any of that influence what I do? Not really.
Yeah.
So that's why I was just like, I can't just list 5 people, because there's way more than 5 people who are important to the history of photography. So all I can do is, like, I thought it would be better just to focus on people that, like, I could say, like, yeah, I extract something from what they've done, and it's kind of seeped down into what I do.
Yeah, and I respect that, and I think the 4 that I selected, I'm there, so I do extract techniques and visions from them. So, yeah,
cool
for me. All right, so thank you. We'll move into these photos really quick before we go into the photos of the week. You sent me some photos that you wanted to talk about, so I'm going to share those really quick. First one.
Oh yeah, this kind of goes back to
this. So we'll wrap up the perfection portion, and then we'll close it out with photos of the week. So start with this photo.
Yeah, I think this is just a good, illustration, a good example. These are just 3 pictures from Anton Corbin, Dutch photographer. Did a lot of rock and roll, fashion, filmmaker. This picture is of Joy Division, and that person on the right is Ian Curtis, who took his own life not too many weeks after this photograph was actually taken, or not too long after this photograph was taken. This is in the tube station in the UK somewhere. The photograph, when he originally took it, was not considered to be great because think about it. He's taken for, I think, for NME, New Musical Express, and the job was go take pictures of this band. And so you get this image back from the photographer, and three quarters of the band isn't even facing the camera. They're looking down the steps. You can't even tell who they are. And there's only one guy looking back. Now, he happens to be the lead singer. More than half the frame, almost three quarters of the frame, is not the band. So if the job was go take pictures of this band and you got this, would this be your idea of perfection? Now, fast forward a couple of weeks or a couple of months, the lead singer hangs himself the night before the band is going to go for their debut American tour. And Joy Division becomes a legendary band, but he kills himself. So now this picture has this entirely different resonance and meaning because everybody else was looking forward and he's looking back, and the one guy looking backwards took his own life.
Yep.
So would this be, if you were an editor of a music magazine and none of that was there and it was just a picture, you sent the photographer out to go get a picture of the band? Well, hey, why is three quarters of the frame not the band? It's like the ceiling. Why are three of the guys facing forward? Again, is this a perfect picture? No, but it is. Okay, next one.
Next one is this guy.
Okay. Same photographer, Anton Corbin. These are three images from him. That is Peter Gabriel walking down the road, I think either in Ireland or maybe in Bath, which is where his studio is. Can you tell that that's Peter Gabriel?
No, sir.
Yeah. Like if you really zoomed in, look at the amount of grain that is. It's taken from pretty far away.
Mm-hmm. Probably cropped.
No, I think that this particular, I looked at the frame. It's a 35 frame. I don't think it's cropped. But what's perfect about this image, Gabriel always kind of did things a little bit differently. He's a really kind of an interesting artist. He took his own path. It was really in contrast to work that he had done before and in contrast to anything else the music business was doing. You know, if you look at all the music that he's made, it's very outside the mainstream, and it's also very kind of abstract, kind of it's kind of hard to understand exactly what he's talking about. So if you encapsulate what he is, there's the curve of the road, there's the contrast of the white of the road, and then these two like black areas off to the side where, again, perfection, that's landscape. It's the exposure because he exposed for the road. It's completely blacked out. You can't see any of it. So it highlights the shape, the curve, and then where's the artist? At the very bottom of the frame. But he's so blurry you can't even make him out. So if you were a publisher of a magazine and you got this photograph, the job was go take a picture of an artist. Is this a perfect picture? No, but it is. Can we go to the next one? The last one?
Yep, last one. This one.
Okay. That's the singer Peter Murphy from Bauhaus and then also solo artist. He used some kind of interesting, weird processing system. I think this is cross-process, and also he was using lights. And I think this is probably shot on a Hasselblad. But his face is red. There's motion blur in the photograph. The highlights in some places are kind of blown. It's a little bit hard to tell who it actually is. The color's like completely unnatural. So is it a perfect photograph? No, not from a technical standpoint. Is this a picture, like if you think about Hasselblad, and also Corbin used Leica. Leica and Hasselblad pretty much are the camera systems that he used. Those previous pictures of the 35s were probably, although the Joy Division one might have been a Nikon. He moved to Leica later. But this is a Hasselblad photograph. Is this the ultimate in resolution? Is this that sharp Zeiss lens kind of look? No. He shot mostly, he shoots at frames of at shutter speeds of 60 seconds or less because he wants to introduce a little bit of blur because he thinks it gives it like an organic feel, and that having a little bit of motion blur brings something to the photograph. I, for the most part, shoot at about 60th of a second. I try not to go higher than that because I kind of want a little bit of the same thing. It's not perfect, but look at the image. It's striking. It's different. And it says, who is this person? Who, even if you don't know his music or know who he is, you know right away, this is like, there's something special going on here. But it's taking a camera that's capable of the ultimate in resolution in film technology at that time and throwing out all that sharpness and all that ability and saying, let me make this image be something completely different than what a lot of other people might take a picture of. So is it a perfect image? No, but it is. Mm-hmm. So those are just, to me, 3 examples of portraits where it isn't about the sharpness, it isn't about the resolution, it isn't about getting the exposure correct, it isn't about even having the people look at the camera, but they're amazing photographs.
Definitely.
So that's it.
So actually, these are the first time I've seen any of these 3 images. So I thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you educating me with additional photographers and their photos that I'm not aware of.
Cool. Yeah, I love this guy. He's one of my favorites.
All right. So now we will move into photo of the week. I will allow you to go first this time since I went first with the Mount Rushmore.
You're spoiling me, man.
You're the guest, right? Well, no, we're equals here. So let me pull your photo up. All right. Here we go.
All right. So this is an image by Guy Bourdin. He is sadly no longer with us. I believe that this is for a shoe company called Charles Jordan. There's actually a book that you can buy on Amazon, and it's like the most random thing. He got hired to basically shoot shoes. The campaign for this shoe manufacturer. And there's a book of a bunch of the pictures of his best frames that he did for this shoe manufacturer. And this is a frame from that working relationship. But if you think about it, if you hire somebody, a photographer, and say, okay, well, you're going to do a shoe campaign, look at what this guy did. Mm-hmm. I mean, okay, you've got that brown shoe in the lower left-hand corner. Where is it sitting in the frame? And then look at the way that it's lit. There's a shadow behind it. So it's making it almost 3D. It's making it pop up from that blue table or whatever that is. And then diagonally across is that girl who's not looking at the camera. She's looking down. You could see her breast and her nipple is kind of, I didn't notice that right away. I only just noticed that now. But she's sitting in that folding chair. The yellow, if you look at the colors, the saturation of her lips, of the yellow chair, of the blue table, the green wall, the brown shoe, the geometry of it, the curve of the table, the sharp edges of the chair that she's sitting in, the fact that the female form is suggested, but it's obscured, it's kind of erotic, but then look at all the negative space that's in the photograph. The biggest shoe in the picture, the biggest thing in the picture is not the shoe. It's not the girl. Look at how much of the real estate is not in fashion photography. Pardon?
It's the blue.
Yeah, well, the blue and the green. But if you look at on balance, look at the image on balance and say, how much of this image is it's a woman's shoe commercial. How big is the woman? How big is the shoe? They're not even 25% of what the image is about. And yet, look how impactful it is. Look at this guy's frame. Look at where everything's sitting in the frame. Look at all the curves and the lines and how they complement each other, where your eye goes and the color. I mean, is there a cooler way to make a shoe ad than this? I think it's kind of.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's to me that's why I say he is somebody who, if you get this book, like I said, I think it's Charles Jordan. If you get his book, you could just see how many ways this guy picked to make a shoe look cool. How many different creative ways he presented something that everybody else, or almost anybody else, who else would have come up with this?
Yeah. I don't think I would have. So I'm looking at this and it's clearly shot on film, and like the boundaries from color to color, and just looking at it, like everything is perfect. The grain is perfect. The makeup is perfect. The lighting is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, looking at this picture and these types of pictures by him is why I just want to shoot on film, and why I've been shooting with expired stock. Because portrait's not going to give you this. I don't know that there's a film out there other than maybe like
This is probably slide film, I would say.
Maybe consumer grade films, like maybe if you shot Ultramax or Gold or Lomo 100, maybe you might get this kind of palette. Or if you shot some expired Kodak, you get this.
This is probably old Portra when there was two different versions, the VC and the NC, so the neutral color and the vivid color, which now Portra, modern Portra, is a combination of both.
Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously there was so many stocks you could choose from back then, but to get these kind of saturated colors, I mean, you could do this in digital. You could get these colors in digital pretty easily. I think I could get these with my 50 Lux and with my SL2. I could get this color palette probably pretty easily, but I wouldn't get the grain and I wouldn't get the softness.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that's nice about the fact that this is shot on film is that it's all pleasing, and it's not like you're being assaulted like with the information or the color. Like the color draws you in. It's not saturated, and you don't have sharpness in the girl and in all the edges and everything. So it's like you're looking at this, like, you know, really, really digital looking image. It looks more painterly, I think, because of the fact that the focus on it, if you look at it, is really soft.
Yeah.
If you were to zoom in on her hair, you're not seeing like every individual follicle like you would in digital photography. Or if you zoom in on the shoe, like the shoe, I'm sure if you blew it up to 100%, you could see the pixelation, the grain of everything that's going on the shoe. So I think there's something about the color palette and the fact that there's a lot less information that makes this
a perfect photo.
More than what it is. I think that this works best as a film photograph. I mean, if you look at the upper left-hand corner, you look at the grain structure on the wall.
Yeah. I definitely agree with all of that, and I think it suits today's theme of perfection. And for me, this is a master shot. It is a perfect photo.
Yeah. Yep. Check out his work. He's like every single picture the guy took is like this good. It's bonkers how great the guy was. Just bonkers.
All right, and we'll go to mine next. And I'll tell you, I didn't know you picked a woman for your photo of the week. And here's mine.
Is that a Cartier-Bresson shot?
It is not. It is a Daido Moriyama, which also plays into the theme of
the perfection thing.
Perfection theme. Again, I was unaware of what the theme would be. I already had this in mind. And going back to Japanese philosophy, wabi-sabi, and then the whole entire Provoke era, which was photography that was intentionally not supposed to be perfect, right? But the era was the era, and the photos are impactful, and they're in museums. So I chose this because it's kind of like, first I gotta say I went to a kabuki in Tokyo, a kabuki play. And it's probably the coolest thing I've ever experienced, like firsthand live action stuff. And it's still to the same tradition where they have the people doing the sounds by hand. They have the people coming out holding the sticks in all black robes so that it appears that they're not there. The whole experience of Kabuki is amazing. And Daido Moriyama obviously is on my Mount Rushmore photographers. This is one of my favorite images of his. And I just love the facial expression. But for me, it's the eyes. They're like close to all black.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. I like the grain.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned a provoke thing, because really that's a great kind of place to end a conversation about perfection, because that whole school was deliberately tearing down all those notions, and stuff is wildly overexposed, scratched, grainy, photograph off kilter. It was like, let's tear up the rule book and just completely throw it out. And I know that there's a big book that's
I got that one.
Coffee table book. Which is pretty expensive now, but it's all the provoke stuff in like a big heavy book. But then also they reissued this magazine, this Japanese magazine, Provoke. I think there were 3 volumes of it or 5 volumes of it. I forget how many, but somebody reissued them because the first issues are like impossible to get or super expensive. So they repressed it for the first time in like 50 years or something. A couple of years ago, I got them. I've got those as well, and that's like the original images. But it's great to look at that stuff and realize, like, to be bold enough to say, let's tear down all the notions of what a good photograph is.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, Moriyama's kind of done that kind of his whole life. I mean, in a way, Moriyama kind of sometimes reminds me of Eggleston, the way he'll just go down some back alley and take a picture, and I'm looking at the frame, and I'm like, he looked like he took the picture and he was like, I don't give a shit, click, and Eggleston does that sometimes too. But then other times you'll see some stuff that's like very, very carefully considered by Moriyama. So, it's that approach. Again, I don't think that guy really is particularly interested in perfection.
His style, I see a lot of intentionality, if that's even a word. He's very intentional.
Yeah.
And he sees the world differently, right? So I've seen videos. I haven't met him in person. I would love to. He shoots in Shinjuku all the time, and I'm always hoping one day I just bump into him while I'm out there one day. But
yeah,
just watching his videos, he'll be walking and then he just like stops and then he kind of observes. But he's also kind of like the founding father of the snap shooting, right? So with the Ricoh GR, started that movement. And yeah, so I think,
and there's a lot of GR photographers, or at least there's some GR photographers who I think are very much using that tool to produce provoke type work. Like I know Sarah Simon, I don't know, she's a female Ricoh GR ambassador. She works here in New York, but a lot of her pictures are that kind of like super high contrast, blown out highlights, a lot of movement in the frames and stuff like that. Like she's kind of if she were Japanese and it was 50 years ago, she would definitely be in Provoke. But that's kind of a school of photography that seems like a lot of GR photographers gravitate toward.
Yeah, there's one little frustration that I wanted to get off my chest before we end the show, and you reminded me, so thank you for that. But kind of just want to normalize just being called a photographer, right? So I kind of went on a rant a couple, probably years ago. I don't remember when, but I start to get really, annoyed, probably like between annoyed and just bothered by when I see people like, oh, I'm a film photographer. Oh, I'm a digital photographer. I think we should just go back to like normalizing just the term photographer and go along the lines of, I'm a photographer who shoots on the film, right? The outcome is essentially the same, and you're no better than I am just because you shoot on film or I shoot on digital, and vice versa, right? It's just the process is different. You take a little more extra steps. So I think probably yet again another marketing tool on how to algorithm the algorithms. So I don't know, just my rant for the day. Normalize the word photographer.
Well, I think what you said is correct. We've gotten very used to categorization because if we categorize ourselves, like we're seeing, if we're spending this amount of time on social media, like social media categorizes things, and things that are characterized and branded and packaged in a way that's easy to consume and easy for people to digest tends to travel more or be more impactful. So some people find a need to label themselves, and then other people don't want to have any labels.
Yeah.
And, and that's cool. Like I know that I just take pictures, and I take pictures with certain types of tools. And I'm not naive enough to think that like whatever tools I'm obsessed with right now, in a year from now, I might be like, oh, what was I thinking? I'm so over that thing, and sell it and be onto something completely different. I might go back to digital and be like, why did I waste my time with film? I don't know. I don't think so, but I might. When you're young, you're more susceptible to thinking you have to put these things on yourselves because you think you need to like kind of belong to something. And then the other thing, there's like a lot of bandwagonism, like when Nirvana came out and everyone all of a sudden, like I was in bands playing around on Long Island when Nirvana came out in metal band. And I saw plenty of guys who before Smells Like Teen Spirit were dressed in, hairspray and a pink top and wearing lipstick and all this stuff and had a pink base, whatever. And then a year later, because it took a while for them to get it, a year later, the same guys on stage with like, just long hair and like a flannel shirt, and singing about being depressed, like a lot of people went from being Warrant to being Nirvana wannabes, like in over the course of a year, because things change and people, not everybody's an individual, but that's part of our journey. Sometimes we need to kind of copy or hop on bandwagons and stuff like that and say, I'm this or I'm that. And then we realize after a while, like, maybe it's better not to do that. Maybe I'm just me. I'm just me. That's it.
I like that. Not everyone's an individual. So,
but they will be.
Yeah, they will be. Find themselves.
I mean, listen. I see I live on the Upper East Side of New York. I see so many people in their 70s, in their 80s, totally Botoxed out. Walk down Park Avenue. People with like facelifts, wearing like clothes that like somebody in their 20s would be wearing. Really short shorts. Like literally, people who are like, have been collecting Social Security for years because they want to look like they're young. They want to create, they want to be part of something, or they want to create some image of themselves and align themselves with some other thing. There's lots of people in life who feel like they need to like be a part of something or pretend like they are a part of something or make some compromises to appear to be part of something. And that's all of that's part of our individual journeys. It used to make me angry. Now I'm just like,
you just accept it.
When you say normalize, what do you think? Because we did this podcast that all of a sudden everyone's going to change? No. So like whatever.
I'll continue saying
I just worry about what I worry about what I can do.
Yeah.
I just take pictures.
That's it.
And
That's
I hope
true.
that they're good. And if somebody likes them, cool. And if they don't, it doesn't surprise me in the least.
Yeah, that's the key. Thank you for bringing me back to that. Just focus on myself. I'm my own individual.
That's what old people are supposed to do, Rick. We're supposed to give you guys perspective because we've been around a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And you give me your youthful enthusiasm. And I live vicariously through it.
I'm surrounded by young people at work now, right? So there's this large generation gap, and I've officially become Unk. I'm the Unk at work, so I'm the elderly. So no, it's cool though. Those guys are fun.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Good. And you know, I don't want to be like the old guy who just like sits around and talks about the good old days. The good old days are right now, man.
Yeah, it's true. Every
now.
day you wake up, it's a good old day. So appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, sir. I appreciate your time this evening, my evening, your morning. So I appreciate it. I appreciate all the fans, listeners, supporters who continue to tune in, subscribe, like, and all of this fun stuff that just, I don't know, help us get seen, I guess. But I enjoy doing this, and I hope Jim feels the same. Sorry, I fell asleep mentally. Hope Jim feels the same, and we'll continue giving some unboxing videos, see where it takes us. So, any last words, Jim?
No, just thanks to everybody, and much love to all the photographers we mentioned in this episode. And again, these are just our opinions.
Yeah,
I'm sure that any particular photographer that we talked about, it's just if we have a perspective on what their work is, that's part of the territory. We see somebody else's work, and we just have to think like, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Here's my interpretation of what I think they're doing, or what their limitations are, or what their approach is, or something like that. And I know that probably that's just it's based on nothing. It's just based on me and what I bring to the table and looking at somebody's work, which means nothing. When it gets interesting is you sit down and you say to somebody, "Here's what I think about what you do. Am I right? Am I spot on? What do you think about this? You know, is this correct? What are your motivations?" And that's part of what's interesting. You know, you and I having these conversations is just trying to like talk about this stuff and understand how I perceive things, you perceive things. Maybe people will write feedback in the comments. Maybe we'll end up talking with some of these photographers that we've been mentioning and quiz them about it. But that's where it starts to get interesting, because we look at everything right now, you know, swiping and scrolling and just getting an immediate visceral reaction to something. And that is not the truth of anything. But when you start talking about it and thinking about it, then you can get closer to what the truth is. And that's all that we're doing here, really. Yeah. So much love to everybody that we mentioned, and no offense to anybody if we said anything that's off base.
All of that. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. And everybody have a great rest of their day. Hope you go out and make some photos, and maybe some of this resonates with you. So yeah, thanks again.
Peace.
Unboxing Photography.